Okay, so today we're diving into a really fascinating stack of source material. It's all covering that significant recent meeting at the White House.
Hmm.
Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz sitting down with President Donald Trump. First visit from Merz as Chancellor, so, bound to be important.
Exactly. And what's great about our sources here is they're actually excerpts from BBC News's live reporting, so it's not some polished summary.
Right, not the official press release.
No, it really captures the moments, the specific comments, even the unexpected stuff as it happened. It gives you a much more sort of granular feel for things beyond just the formal points.
Yeah, it's like being a fly on the wall almost.
Hmm.
You see the plan, but also the little deviation. So our mission here is to sift through all this live reporting, pull out the really key
It's
nugget.
the essential.
Yeah, the essentials on, foreign policy, how domestic politics kind of spilled over, even some surprising personal bits. We want to give you a clear sense of what happened and why it matters based on what these reports highlighted without getting totally lost in the weeds. Let's unpack it.
Let's do it.
So, stepping into the Oval Office, as the reports capture it, the initial vibe was noted as, well, pretty cordial.
Mm-hmm. Cordial. Trump smiling, kicking things off, promising a very great relationship with Germany.
And Mertz, he seemed to play along with that opening tone.
Oh, definitely. He thanked Trump, said he was very happy to be here, pointed out the common ground U.S. and Germany have very much in common, the standard diplomatic opening reinforcing the alliance.
But the reporting highlights almost immediately Ukraine came up, like really fast.
Super fast, which isn't maybe surprising given everything, but the speed really signals just how central it was to this meeting, kind of cut through the initial pleasantries.
Yeah, straight to the big stuff. And what's also striking, and the source mentions this, is how quickly the focus during the press availability seemed to pivot
Right.
away from, huge international issues to domestic stuff, specifically this growing tension between Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, the reports literally use the word overshadowing, that the Musk stuff was overshadowing the German visit in a lot of the commentary.
Wow. Okay, well, let's dig into the Ukraine discussion first, because there's a really specific and frankly kind of striking detail in the source material here.
Okay.
Trump apparently used this analogy. He likened the war to two children fighting in a park, suggesting sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while. And he mentioned using that exact analogy in a long, like 2-hour conversation he'd had with Putin.
Yeah, that analogy itself is pretty revealing, isn't it? It gives you a glimpse into his thinking. He also apparently elaborated a bit, saying it's tough to stop because there's just, quote, a lot of bad blood and great hatred between Putin and Zelensky.
So how did Mertz respond? Was he asked about that children fighting analogy directly?
He was, and according to the source, his response was diplomatic. He said they both agree on how terrible the war is and that they're both looking for ways to stop it very soon. So he sort of acknowledged the shared aim without directly engaging with the framing of the analogy itself.
Smart. But did he state Germany's position clearly?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very clearly. Based on the reports, he said, we are on the side of Ukraine. Full stop. And he also made a point of saying Ukraine is only targeting military targets, not civilians.
Okay.
And then this is interesting. He reportedly told Trump directly that he sees him, Trump, as the key person in the world who could actually enable the end of the war
How so?
by putting more pressure on Russia. That was the specific message.
That's quite a direct statement to make in the Oval Office. Did he connect it to anything else?
He did. He brought up the D-Day anniversary, which was the very next day, referenced the liberation of Germany, told the U.S., we owe you, and then linked that history right to the present, saying, America is once again in a very strong position to end this war. He stressed they need to work together, support Ukraine, pressure Russia.
A powerful appeal linking past and present, and Trump's response to being called the key person to end the war.
The source notes his reply was just, we'll talk about it.
Brief.
Very brief. Could mean anything, really. Maybe he wanted to discuss it privately, maybe, signaling other priorities in that moment. Hard to say just from that.
Trump did apparently elaborate a bit later on why he wants the war ended.
Yes, he did. The reporting says he framed it less about money and more about saving lives and, interestingly, preserving Ukrainian culture. He specifically mentioned the destruction of architecture as, like, a loss of culture, of heritage.
Okay. What about sanctions? That must have come up.
It did. Trump got asked about that bill Senator Lindsey Graham was proposing. He said he hadn't really looked at it yet, but called it harsh, very harsh.
And did he talk about when he might consider more sanctions? Was there a deadline?
His answer on timing was, well, vague. He said he'd consider them, quote, when I see the moment, when we're not going to make a deal, when this thing won't stop.
So no clear timeline?
Nope. When asked about a specific deadline, he just replied, it's in my brain. And he added this line, it could be on both countries, it takes two to tango. Suggesting maybe pressure could go both ways.
Interesting. And he brought up Nord Stream 2 as well.
He did. Claimed, I stopped it, it was dead under him, and basically blamed Biden for letting it get finished by waiving sanctions later on.
Okay, but the source material adds context there, right?
It does, yeah. It immediately notes that critics, back when Trump was in office, accused him of taking too long to act on Nord Stream 2, and suggested his motives were maybe more about economic advantage for the U.S., not just geopolitics. So you get both sides of that claim presented.
Right, important context. Okay, let's pivot now, kind of following the reporting's lead, to this issue that apparently overshadowed the visit coverage, the Trump-Elon Musk rift.
Yeah, it's fascinating how a domestic spat gets tangled up in an international summit's reporting.
Totally. So what's the background here, according to the source?
Well, the report details that Musk recently left a White House cost-cutting initiative. They called it Doge, apparently after only about, 129 days?
Not long.
Not long at all. And since then, he's been pretty active on X hammering Trump's big legislative proposal, the big, beautiful bill. Musk claims it'll bankrupt America.
Strong words. And Trump's reaction to being criticized by Musk.
He said he was surprised and disappointed, mentioned he's always liked Musk personally.
But he offered a reason why he thinks Musk is criticizing the bill.
He did. His interpretation, as reported, is that Musk is actually upset because the administration got rid of EV mandates and tax credits. Trump said he knew that move disturbed Musk.
Ah, so linking it to EVs.
Yeah, Trump's take was basically Musk should criticize him personally for the EV stuff, not attack the entire bill.
Got it. And there was some other anecdote Trump shared about NASA.
Yeah, a little peek behind the curtain. Trump mentioned, according to the source, that Musk had once recommended someone he knew to run NASA, but Trump didn't think it was appropriate. Just adds a layer to their past relationship.
So what's the state of that relationship now, based on Trump's comments?
Pretty strained, it seems. The quote captured was, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we will anymore. He even likened Musk's criticism after leaving the administration to Trump derangement syndrome.
Wow.
And he threw in a reference to Musk's departure, saying he got a wonderful send-off, and supposedly wore a hat saying Trump was right about everything. So clearly some tension there.
Meanwhile, Musk is firing back on X in real time.
Pretty much. The source captured his responses. He directly called Trump's claim that he knew the bill's details false, tweeted that the bill was never shown to me even once and was rushed through Congress so fast nobody could read it.
And did he address the EV tax credit point?
He did. Basically dismissed it with a whatever. So keep the EV cuts if you want, even though oil and gas subsidies weren't touched, which he called unfair. But his main point was, ditch the mountain of disgusting pork in the bill.
So his focus is on the spending, not the EV part.
Exactly. That's what the report conveys. He sees it as full of wasteful spending. He apparently called the bill an abomination in another post. His final word was kind of, you get a big and ugly bill or a slim and beautiful bill.
Okay, so this big, beautiful bill is clearly a major flashpoint.
Right.
Can we just quickly clarify what the source says it actually is?
Sure. Based on the report, it's described as one of Trump's signature policies, but it's currently stuck in Congress.
Stalled, right, and its main components.
The source mentions things like huge tax breaks and also higher defense spending.
And Trump himself describes it glowingly.
Yeah, calls it incredible, a huge tax cut. But, and this is probably key to Musk's objections, the reporting highlights a critical piece of context.
What's that?
The Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, had just released its estimate the day before this meeting.
Okay.
And that estimate projected the bill would add, wait for it, $2.4 trillion to the national debt over 10 years.
$2.4 trillion. Okay. Yeah, I can see why that number would cause some controversy.
Definitely. And the source notes Trump's reaction to that CBO number was to ask his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, to basically review their math, to weigh in on the CBO's figures.
Got it. So that whole saga explains the overshadowing aspect the reports mentioned.
Precisely. It became a major side story to the actual diplomatic meeting.
Okay, beyond Ukraine and the Musk drama, the live reporting picked up a few other things too, right? Like a travel ban.
Yes, exactly. Trump was asked about a travel ban announced just the day before. Questions were basically, why now? And why wasn't Egypt on the list?
And his reasons.
He cited safety, mentioning a recent attack in Colorado involving an Egyptian suspect.
Hmm.
As for why Egypt wasn't included, he just said they have things under control. He also added the ban couldn't come soon enough, in his view.
What about German defense spending? That came up, too.
It did. Trump called Germany boosting its spending positive a good thing. And there was this moment, kind of a joke, captured in the report.
Oh, yeah?
He apparently said something like, they said never let Germany rearm, but then added that Germany rearming now is good, at least to a certain point, followed by, we'll be watching, but then clarifying he was joking.
Okay. Bit of Oval Office humor there. And trade.
Yeah.
Any specific comments on U.S.-German trade?
He called Merz a very good man, but also, jokingly, difficult, saying Merz wouldn't want to be called easy, standard stuff about wanting a very good relationship and expecting a good trade deal.
But acknowledging the EU role.
Yeah, he noted it's mostly determined by the EU, but Germany is obviously a very big part of that.
Now, one of the most unique moments seems to be this gift Merz brought.
Oh, the birth certificate. Yes, really unexpected. Merz presented Trump with his grandfather's birth certificate, Friedrich Trump.
And the source gives a little background on him.
It does, yeah. Born 1869, Bavaria. Emigrated in 1885, supposedly to avoid military service. Settled in New York, went west during the gold rush, ran businesses for miners.
Like hotels or restaurants, that kind of thing.
Seems like it. Then went back to Germany, got expelled, returned to the U.S. with his wife Elizabeth Christ, started the family real estate business, and then died pretty young in the 1918 Spanish flu. Trump's father, Fred, was only 3.
Wow, that's quite a story packed into a source note. A real piece of personal history exchange during a state visit.
Definitely adds a different dimension. Now, related to German politics, there was this potential issue the source mentioned, something that didn't happen, an ambush.
Right. Explain that. What was the concern?
The reporting mentioned predictions that Merz might get ambushed on German domestic politics. Specifically, concerns from some in Trump's circle, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, were named about Germany's firewall policy against the far-right AfD party.
And freedom of speech issues, too.
Yeah, those broader concerns as well. The source even mentions Vance had made critical comments before and met with the AfD leader. And Merz had previously told the U.S. to basically stay out of their domestic affairs.
So, potential for friction there.
Yeah.
But it didn't materialize.
Nope. According to the report, none of it was raised. Vance and Rubio were there but sat quietly. The source framed it as a best-case scenario for Germany, saying they handled it diplomatically but firmly, presumably by setting expectations beforehand.
Interesting. Okay, one last piece from the reporting, a call with China.
Yeah, Trump revealed he'd spoken with President Xi of China just that morning. Said he got an invitation to visit China, and he invited Xi to the White House in return.
Just casually drop that in.
Pretty much. Called it a very good talk, said they straightened out complexities, mentioned a U.S. delegation was meeting with China's top people.
Anything on Chinese students coming to the U.S.?
He said they could come without problems, called it our honor to have them, but he did add a qualifier. He wants them checked.
Okay, so pulling all these threads together, wow. This deep dive into live reporting really shows just how much can be going on during one of these high-level meetings.
Absolutely. It's not just the official agenda points like Ukraine or trade. You've got, blunt personal opinions, major domestic political fights like the Musk thing spilling over, bits of history, even impromptu announcements about calls with other leaders. It's all happening at once.
It really is a dense snapshot, isn't it? It wasn't just about U.S.-Germany. It was U.S. domestic politics. Personalities, history, Ukraine, Russia, China, all intersecting.
And that's really the key takeaway for you, trying to make sense of world events. The headlines often give you one story, maybe two, but the reality, as these reports show, is much more layered. So many different factors are swirling around beyond the formal statements.
Yeah, absolutely. This live reporting captured, like you said, geopolitics, economics, personal jabs, history, all crammed into the context of one single visit.
A real microcosm of all the different forces shaping things today.
So here's maybe a final thought to leave you with, building on all this. When you see how many different things, global conflicts, economic policy, personal beefs, domestic fights, even family history, can all converge and interact within just one high-level meeting.
Mm-hmm.
How does that change the way you think about how international relations actually works?
Mm-hmm.
Beyond those simplified headlines.
Mm-hmm.
What other hidden layers or unexpected connections might be going on in events that we only hear about for one main reason? Something to think about.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.